Good evening. Hope all of you are doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Megillah, Daf Tes Zayin, starting on the very last line where it reads Vayimatzei Kasuv. Before that, a housekeeping note on Shabbos. I will be in Skokie, but I'm not leaving till after Shachar. So what we're going to do is have Daf Yomi at 8 a.m. on Shabbos morning. For those who are able to make it, for those who are not, I apologize. But I will not be here Shabbos afternoon. So 8 a.m. only. I'll ensure to share this information with the secretary so she can send it out accordingly. 8 a.m. on Shabbos. Says the Gemara at the bottom of Tes Vav Amud Beis, last line by Imatzei Kasuv. The Gemara makes a diuk that he was reading, as we spoke about yesterday. He was reading from the Sefer HaZichronos by Imatzei Kasuv. It seems to imply the word Kasuv is that it's being written, as opposed to Kasav Miboile, that it was written. The Gemara is bothered by that. Melamed, top of Tezayin Amud Aleph, Shimshi Mochek. Shimshi was the scribe. Rashi says Shimshi Sofer HaMelech Sone Yisrael Haya. So he did not like the Jews. So he was being mochek what happened with Mordechai, but every letter he erased, they got real kosef. So there was a miracle that took place. Of course, we know the multi-layered onion of miracles, which is the story of Purim. So this was yet one of the many. So he was currently writing that. So every time he tried to erase it, it didn't work. That's what Shimshi tried. Shimshi sounds like a Jewish name, but it clearly was not a Yid. Amar Ravasi, Darash Shila, Ish Kfart Marta, Uma Ksav Shelemata, just like down here on earth, when something is for the schus of Klal Yisrael, you can't erase it because Gabriel will step in and intervene. All the more so, ksav shelamala lo kol shekain. All the more so, something that's written upstairs, a gzeira that's written in Shamayim will be something that will be upheld. Says the Gemara, lo naase imo davar. What is this pasuk talking about? So I'll read the full pasuk. It's important to have context when we're learning these psukim. The pasuk reads, "Vayomer hamelech ma naaseh yikar gdula leMordechai." What great thing can we do for him? Alzeh. Vayomru na'arei hamelech, the people who were serving the king, Misharasav, lo naaseh imo davar. They responded that nothing was done. So that was their language. Third line of Tezvat Zayin Amud Aleph, lo naaseh imo davar. Amar Rava lo mipnei she'ohavin es Mordechai. They weren't stepping in to say, yeah, we need to do good by Mordechai, but rather el mipnei shesonim es Haman. Haman wasn't only a Rasha to the Yidden; he was very much disliked by his colleagues. This is not a workplace kind of guy. You want. What?
They said we shouldn't do anything for Mordechai.
No, nothing.
Nothing special.
Yeah, they were saying. No, the question was, Ma naaseh, lo naaseh imo davar. Oh, I learned that incorrectly. Lo naaseh imo davar. I thought that was that nothing was done for him, but they were saying the other way, that nothing should be done for him.
Nothing special.
But then how does that make sense in the Gemara? The Gemara says, Lo mipnei she'ohavin es Mordechai. It can't be learned that way. That doesn't make sense. Right. Yeah, it has to be that nothing was done for him. That was that we know that was Achashverosh's question. I don't know about the grammar is a problem because Na says we shall do, but it must be like.
What I'm not sure of was this in the story before Achashverosh declared that it was Mordechai, and maybe they thought at this point.
Pasuk says Mordechai. Pasuk says Yikar Gdula leMordechai. And then by Yomru Namre Hamelch Misharsav Lo Naaseh imo davar. Nothing was done. It has to be past tense. Otherwise, the rest of the Gemara doesn't make sense because they were saying nothing was done, implying that something should be done. And then Rava said it has to be that it's not because they loved Mordechai, but rather because they hated Haman. And they knew the way this was playing out is that Haman was for sure going to think he was the recipient of this gala event that's going to take place during traipsing him through the streets. So then the pasuk says Heichin lo Tana lo Heichin. It was actually prepared for him, for Haman. The Asachen the Mordechai, and they did all this good stuff for Mordechai. Amar le. So then Haman's like, wait a second, I want to make sure that I know who we're talking about. And he tries to weasel out which Mordechai we're talking about. Manu Mordechai. He says to Haman, who's Mordechai? As if there wasn't a famous one already. Amar le, HaYehudi, the Yid, the one that's Jewish, which implies, of course, that they had this name in their culture as well. We have this also in Muslim culture. I just did a circumcision for a family. Their son's name was Musa, which is Moshe. You got Ibrahim and Yusuf, all that. These are all Torah names. They're all Chumash names. So he was HaYehudi. He was a Yid. Omar le, Haman says back to Achashverosh, Tuva Mordechai kabi Yehuda. A lot of Jews are named Mordechai. What's the big deal? How do you know who we're talking about? Omar le, Hayoshe b'sha'ar hamelech, the one who you know. Stop playing all these games. We know who we're talking about. Omar le, all right, fine. Now I know who you're talking about. But Sagile bechad diskarta. Inami bechad nara. Let's give him a little kfar. Rashi says 3 lines down. Rashi diskarta. Give him a kfar. Give him a nahara. Give him a river. Litol meches. Let him have the consistent annual proceeds. It's like good to own parking lots, right? It's good to own bridges too, because if you're the one who gets to control the toll booth, you get to bring in some cash. So he said, I don't want to give him all this kavod. Let's give him something that will generate some funds for him. No harm to us. Okay, we won't get the revenue, but I don't have the busha of him getting all of these rewards. Amar le, the king said, you should do that too. Hanami havle. Absolutely, great idea. Haman, you're thinking just right. I like the way you're going. Al tapel davar mikol asher dibarta. And this was actually, again, another subtext in the Navi, in the Megillah, excuse me, is that Al tapel davar mikol asher dibarta was to include this city and river, which the pasuk doesn't say. Al tapel davar. We'll see another great one of these in a moment. So then Vayikach Haman es halavush v'esasus. He takes the king's clothing and he takes a horse, Azal, and he went to go find Haman. Ashkeche de yasve rabbanan kameh. He saw that there were rabbis sitting in front of him. Umachvi lehu hilchos kmitza l'rabbanan, and Mordechai was teaching them the halachos of kmitza to the rabbis this particular day. They were sitting and learning those halachos. So Rashi here on the 4th line says, 3rd line, excuse me, Rashi dibur hamaskal hilchos kmitza dorish binyano shel yom v'shisha asar b'nisan haya. It was the 16th of Nisan, shehu yom tenufas ha'omer. And they needed to take a kmitza. So he wants the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt. So he's showing them, by the way, please God, we'll go back, Al Kanfei Nisharim, and I'll show you how the kmitza for today should be done. And he grabbed some flour, opened up his hands, and showed them how to do the kmitza. Fine. So that's what was going on in the base medrash, and says the Gemara that Haman came in the Chazi Mordechai to apik lekible, when he saw that Haman came to see him, v'suse mechad biyade, and he had horses in hand, mirtas, he got very scared. Amar lehu leRabbanan, hai rishia lemiktal nafshi kasi, he's here to come kill me. Zilu mikame, he said to the people learning with him, get out of here. Dilo tichvu begachalto, so that you don't get burned with his coal. Obviously, just referencing his anger and his kas, and if he's there with a sword to kill, let's make sure that nobody else gets hurt. Let him kill me. But ve'ahishaita nisatef Mordechai v'kamle litzlusa. He does what Jews should do all the time when things are difficult, and he jumped into a Shmona Esrei. Now, of course, these high-level Shmona Esreis of great people are unfortunately not like the Shmona Esreis that we have. The Shulchan Aruch writes in Hilchos Tefillah that when one davens, it should be Begeder his pashtos hagashmias, that we should be on such a level that we are unaware of our physical being. We are so tapped in to our neshama that we are able to reach the highest of levels. And you could tap someone on the arm; they won't be able to be aroused. They're in the middle of davening. So Mordechai jumps into tefillah. So Amar lehu, singular to plural. He says to the students, "B'mayas kisu, what were you guys just learning about?" Also Haman v'yasiv le kamayu. Thank you for telling me. So Haman, and he grabbed a chair. Unbelievable. The orich, and he waited at the salik Mordechai letzluse, and while he waited for him to finish Shmona Esrei. What's going on here? What's happening here?
I guess it's a lesson to some of us to go a little impatient when they're
That's a Musar Haskell. That's not where my head was going. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I was looking at myself.
No, that's beautiful. No, I love that. You need to write a sefer. Divrei Daniel B'Chase. That's going to be the new name of your book. That's Givaldic. But the Rishonim have a little bit of a different approach, and that is that Haman noticed that he was davening be'atzvus. Can't daven ba'atzvus. You have to daven mitoch simcha, afal pi, that things are difficult. So when things are difficult, if we really believe deep down that kol David Rachmana l'tavu David, but nevertheless, the formula of our halachic system is that we need to daven when things are, we need to talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Abba, I need your help. So then when he saw that, he's like, oh, I can take a seat now. His tefillos aren't going to be niskabel. They have to be mitoch simcha, but lo mitoch atzvus. That's what some of the meforshim write. Anyways, while he was davening Shmona Esrei, Omar Lahu, he said to them, B'maya skisu, what sugya are you learning? What's happening here? This whole story is crazy. Amru le, the rabbi said to him, Bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim. It's like a kiruv training seminar from Aish. Back in the day when the temple stood, man deminadev mincha, a person would give a flower offering. Maisi male kumtse de sulta, he would grab a kmitza's worth of fine flour, umiskaper le, and he would then get kapara. Now we start to see some inner feelings of Haman. Amar Le, quarter of the way down, 15 lines into the Gemara, Tezayin Amar Aleph, Amar Lehu, he says to them, Asa Malay Kumtza Kimcha Didchu, your handful of kimitza, of flour that you grabbed in your hand, is more powerful than dachi, and it has pushed away a Sara Alfe Kikare Kaspa Didi, the 10,000 Kikar Kesef that I was awarded. Because remember, as we said earlier, the mashal the Gemara gave is one guy had a charetz and one guy had a pile of dirt. So the Gemara says that money was supposed to go to him. He said the money was irrelevant because this tiny little amount of flour was more powerful, because the Jews seem to have gotten some form of kapara. That's at least what the Gemara implies. It doesn't say that. Amar Le, and then Haman's done with Shmona. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Mordechai is done with Shmona. Amar Le, hey, Russia, listen up. He says, Eved shekana nechasim. If you have a slave who acquired properties, Eved lemi v'nechasim lemi. Who does the Eved belong to, and who does the property belong to? See, at this point, Haman, it was clear that Haman wasn't going to be killing Mordechai. So Mordechai kind of leveraged the spot and started to dig a little bit. He said, remember when you used to be my Eved back in the day? We saw this in Rashi. In yesterday's blot, that in fact, in the earlier phase of Haman's life, he was so poor he became a slave to Mordechai for bread. So now he's digging in, like, oh, you used to be my slave. All of a sudden, the tables are turning. So Amar Le kum levush hani mane. So now Haman doesn't respond to that, but he does say, "Come, get up, put on the king's garments, the rachuv hai susya the bailach malka, and please ride this horse that the king has required of you." Amar Le, Mordechai says, I can't. Lo yechilna. I don't look respectable. I've been fasting for the last couple of days. Haven't gotten a haircut in a while. Ada Ailina lebeibane. I have to go to the bathhouse. Ve'eshkol amazia, and I have to get a haircut. The lavo rachara lishtamushe b'mane demalka hachi. It's not appropriate to use the kalim to wear the clothing of the king when you're dressed like a shlump and when you need to take a shower. It's not nice. Go grab a shower. Everybody knows you gotta look like a mensch. It's
mamish. The confluence of the Gan shiurim here in the Makor, because in the morning, my cotton shiur is third pair. When you get the haircut before the Yom Tov. As I stated Pikas last night, this is taking place Mamish Erev Pesach.
correct.
No,
So
This is on Pesach.
It was on Pesach.
Well,
This was Chol
it's the whole
Hamoed. This
question.
seemingly took place on Chol
you
Hamoed.
said we're saying this is test science of the first day of Chol
The Kmitza was done, Rashi says right there.
Exactly.
Kmitza Shisha Asar. So the
so
Chutzlar should be Yom Tov Sheni Shel Gadol.
When did that start?
That might be the answer.
So
Or no, maybe this was the next day.
exactly, he was honest, exactly, which means that's the Gemara says in my cotton. So that's why.
We'll also see that he didn't do any malacha, because we're going to see who gave him a haircut momentarily. But
I don't know.
yeah.
Is the guy criterion my cotton who gives who does the malacha?
oh, it's for you for sure. Don't violate anything if you're sitting there doing nothing.
Makif and Nikaf is different.
That's different, because there's a categorical isser for what's happening to
Right,
you.
you're not doing the
But
wrong.
here, let's say somebody comes over to you and cuts your nails. The poskim ask this in Hilchos Nida. Let's say that a woman has to go to the mikvah Friday night and she forgot to clean out her nails. Do you know what the poskim recommend? You should have a non-Jewish woman bite your nails to make them shorter and make them appropriate for mikvah. Now, I don't know who has friends like that ever, anywhere, and certainly not in the Goyish Welt. I don't know how that would roll, but that is the recommendation. Why? Because it's only Derabanan. It's Amir La'akum. So here, this seems to still be the 16th. Maybe Tex is right. We don't know exactly when the Din Derabanan of Yom Tov Sheni kicked in. We did learn about it, but this is still in between the first two Batei Mikdash. Why can't? What happened during the years between Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni?
Right.
This was before Bayis
Probably right. This is before Bayis Sheni, right before Bayis Sheni.
So you're saying there was no second day?
Right. Just the Din Deraisa. So this 16th, when they were doing the Kmitza, was the first day of Chol Hamoed. The Chora text is right.
So the Chora, Michael said there was an honest for Mordechai, so he had no issue of getting hair to Chol Hamoed.
Yeah.
Well, for sure that. Yeah. No, it's also based on Surim. That's like the Din
But
of
I'm saying that's
Shulchan
one of
Aruch.
the things. It's a
Yeah.
certain. I don't know if it's based on certain Mordechai.
No, but I'm just saying it's a similar halacha. I don't know. I have to look in Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah there. Anyways, he wanted to go.
Something very serious.
Yeah.
Definitely very serious. I'm saying it's Tzarech Tzibur of the highest caliber. All right. So the Gemara says that Esther did a little bit of a sneaky move here. Says the Gemara, Shadra Esther. The asartinhu lakulu bebani lakulu omni. She hid all of the people who ran the bathhouses and who gave haircuts. So what did Haman do? He had no choice. So Haman tended to the beibane, to the bathhouse needs of Mordechai. Not only that, he went home, grabbed a pair of scissors out of the junk drawer, and he gave a haircut to Mordechai. So the turn of events is incredible. He couldn't kill him because the king made a mandate on him, and he would be killed if he would do that. He couldn't kill him, so he had to follow all the rules. While he was in the process of giving him a haircut, in God, the isnach, he groaned, he grunted. Amar le. So Mordechai says to him, why are you groaning? So he says, Amar le, Gavra dahavar chashiv leila malka mikulhu rav rivanohi. I was the most chashiv of all of the people in the entire kingdom. Hashta lishavye baloni v'sapar. Now I've become a bathhouse attendant, and I have become the next person at Supercuts to give haircuts. So Amar le Rasha, he says to him, you're a Rasha. V'lav sapar shel kfar kartzum haisa. We have a bryce in our tradition, Haman, that you were actually a haircut. You were a stylist back in the day. Tana, first of the very long line, second of the very long lines. Tana Haman sapar shel kfar kartzum haya esrim shtayim shana. Probably gave a geshmak a haircut. So he's been 22 years of experience in the industry. Okay. All done. After he finishes the haircut, he puts on all of the clothes that the king asked him to. Amar le sak v'rachab. I need you to climb up and get on the animal. So Mordechai is like, Amar le, listen, I've been fasting. I'm tired. Lo yechilna. I can't. I'm so wiped. I'm so trashed. I've been fasting for days because you're a Rasha. You had this gezerah. Gachin v'salik. So Haman leans over on the ground, standing on all fours, and then all of a sudden, Mordechai just climbs on his back, a nice footprint. It says like the shoe brand on his back in mud. Like a perfect match. Kisalik bat be, and when Mordechai climbed up, he gave a little bit of a zetz. He gave a little kick. Omar le. Haman tries to pull a quick one on Mordechai. He says, "Lo ksiv lechu bin polei vechal tisma." Doesn't it say in your Torah you're not allowed to do this for your oyev? You're not allowed to be so happy. You can't just give me a kick whenever you want. Omar le, I'll darshan that pasuk for you, no problem. Hani mili be Yisrael. Absolutely, you're right. Had you been a yid, aval b'didchu ksiv ve'ata al b'mosenu sidroch, I can trample all over you, no problem. Halfway down, middle of these middle width lines. Vayikra lefanov kacha yasel ish asher hamelech hafetz bikaro, the famous pasuk. Ki haba nakid ve'azil b'shvila debei Haman. They were walking down the street where Haman's family lived. Chazise berote dekaima igra. His daughter saw him, and she was standing on the roof. Savra, she thought, hi de rachiv avua. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't know what was going on. So she thought that kacha yasel ish. It must be that it's Haman who's sitting on the horse and Mordechai who is in tow. So she said, Savra, hi de rachiv avua, v'hai de maske kame, the one in front, not in tow, but in front of. V'hai de maske, the one in front kame is Mordechai. So shakla atzitza, remember atzitz nakov. She took a little, like a little pitcher or a bucket. Debase hakise, yikes, an outhouse bucket, not exactly pleasant. Vishadise areshe de avua. She's got awesome aim, 6-flight building, dumps it right on his head. Not exactly the best thing in the world. As he managed to clean off his face just enough to look up, dal ene, he raised his eyes, dali ene, he looked up, v'chazas de avuhahu. And then she saw that it was her father. She jumped off the roof. Nafla me'igra la'ara u'meisa. That was not a good idea. This pasuk is lengthy. There's 2 parts of this drasha. The first part is not relevant. The second is Vayesha Mordechai el Shar HaMelech Amar Rav Sheshes Sheshav L'Sako L'Sani. So that after this whole fancy event, he ended up going back to his Sakva Efer and Tainus because he hadn't finished the 3-day fast that Esther had required. And the second part of the pasuk was about Haman. V'Haman nidchav el beso. Avel v'chafui rosh. This avel hinted to in the pasuk. It's explicit in the pasuk, but hinting to the fact that his daughter just died because she committed suicide. V'chafui rosh, and of course, he was physically very dirty. He needed a shower. It's not exactly the best way to come home. Avel al beso v'chafui rosh al she'iralo. He was mourning his daughter, and was of course very dirty from what happened. Vaysaper Haman lezeresh ishto l'chol ohavav, and the pasuk goes on to reference chachamav karile ohavav v'karile chachamav. He goes on to reference those who were part of his family, who he loved or who loved him, and also those who were wise. Amar Rav Yochanan kol haomer davar chachama afilu be'umos ha'olam nikra chacham. This is reflected, of course, in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that chachma bagoyim tamin, is that if you have a statement of chachma afilu be'umos ha'olam nikra chacham, This just happened. I'm running a program in the OU, and someone in the community said, why don't you have a haskama? I said, give me a name of a haskama that you'd like, and I'll go get you a haskama. They said, Rav Shalom Kamenetsky. I said, sure, no problem. I knew someone who knew him. I made a phone call. I flew to Philadelphia, and he looked at this material that we're handing out. He says, I don't know why you flew out here. Chachma b'goyim tamim. It may be that a Yid didn't write it, but it's all research-based. He used this word. It's science. It was a parenting program, all based on research exclusively. This organization let us change out the pictures so it was tzanua b'chulei. But we chachma b'goyim tamin. Yeah, it's okay to read a secular book as long as it's research-based and it's not kfiradik and there's nothing philosophical or necessarily challenging about it. But that's why some people have problem with biblical criticism. These books that look at the Torah through the lens of what they call the J&E hypothesis, are well known that there's a Yud Kei Vav Kei name, and there's the Elohim name, and there's really two editors, Rahman al-Itzlan of the Chumash, and they wove them together. But really, reverse engineered, was really two people who wrote the Chumash, Hashem Yirachem. That's obviously not a Har Masorah, but these are shilas and poskim that you're not necessarily allowed to read. That may be a real categorical issue, but to read a secular book that's just research-based, science, chachma b'goyim tamin. So that's what happened over here. What was the chachma that they shared? Imizera haYehud and Mordechai, if he is part of the ancestry of the Jews, Amrulei, these wise people said to him, Imishar shvatim kaasi yachlislei. From many of the shvatim, you could beat Mordechai, but the Imisheva Yehudu v'Yamin ve'Ephraim u'Menashe, if he's from any of these four, lo yachlislei, you cannot beat him at all. And psukim to boot, says the Gemara, Yehuda dechsiv yadecha be'oref v'yavecha, their hand will be at the neck of their enemies, implying that they'll always win. And Enoch, all of the other three, Binyamin, Ephraim, and Menashe, lifnei Ephraim, Binyamin, and Menashe, their strength will be awakened. So that says the Gemara next, Kina folti po lefanav, that he fell, double language of Nefila. Darash Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai shtei nefilas halal ulama. Why was there a double fall? So says the Gemara, Amru lo umazu mishula la'afar mishula lekochavim. The Jewish people are compared to dirt, and they're also compared to the kochavim, to the stars. This is our swain. Says the Gemara 2/3 of the way down, 3/4 of the way down. Shehin Yordan, when the Jews drop Yordan ad Afar, they do terrible. They go all the way down to the dirt. Ukshehin Olin ad la kochavim. It's such a wide berth that we are able to hit. And sometimes it's nothing more than our psychology, the psychology of failure. There's research on this. Once you fail, okay, I already failed, I'm going to fail again. Then you're in the rabbit hole of failure. But if our mindset was that, no, Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us to succeed. When we fail, he wants us to get up and brush our, Kumi, clean off your clothes, get up and go try again. So this is the wide spectrum of our capacity as Jews. Next, v'sarise hamelech higiu v'yavhilu. What does this mean? That the sarise hamelech, that they showed up, v'yavhilu melamed sheviyu bebehala, that they brought Haman in bebehala. According to some, it means he hadn't even cleaned himself yet. He still needed to shower. Kinim karnu ani ve'ami. So now the queen is speaking to Achashverosh. My nation was sold. Ki ein hatzar shaveh benezek hamelech. It's not worth the damage to the king. Amra lo, she said to him, Tsar zeh, this terrible enemy, eino shaveh benezek shel melech. He doesn't care about you at all. Ikni ba bevashti v'katla. He was jealous about Vashti, and he created a whole ruse to ensure that she was killed. And now this evil person is doing the same thing to me. Hashta ikni bididi. Now he's jealous of me. We know from the Gemara, she didn't say this, but she was a very beautiful woman, and he was jealous, and therefore mi boile niktali, and he wants to kill me as well. So then Vayomer hamelech Achashverosh, Vayomer leEsther Amalka, but it has a double language of Vayomer. It says Vayomer hamelech Achashverosh, and then again Vayomer lamali. Why does it say it twice? So Omer Rabbi Abo b'tchila asal yadei turgaman. Often he would speak to Esther through a turgaman, through a translator. But once she shared a little bit about her past, Kevan de Amra le mi de beis Shaul ka'asina. Once she said that she is actually of the lineage of Shaul HaMelech, miyad vayomer le Esther Hamalka, directly without the Maturgaman. So the first vayomer, all the previous vayomers seemingly was through a Maturgaman. However, this conversation changed gears. He spoke to her directly at the 12:10 line.
Where do we see that she mentioned that she's from Shaul?
It's not mentioned in the pasuk. It's not mentioned. It's on Masorah. It's not mentioned in the pasukim yet.
By the way, if there's a Turkman in last night's Shiloh, there would have been a Turkman as well. She wouldn't have been alone with her.
That's assuming
They
there
knew
was
it was a leaf.
they were told. Yeah, that's assuming there was conversation to be had. But Beinyane Tash Mishamita, that's not. You kick everybody out. That's not.
No, I'm saying when she went in the room.
It still is a kasha last night. That's a very difficult sugya to navigate. I don't know. We'd have to learn all the sugyas of Yeharig Val Yavor coupled with her willingness to walk in. And Rashi said it was for Bia, but it's not pashut that's what was happening. It's not clear every time they saw each other. Okay, was that the mitzias? It's not clear. It's not clear. I don't know. But here in this case, we're under the assumption that in general, during dialogue, they had a meturgaman until now. So this pasuk is very interesting. It sounds very simple that Esther highlighted that Tsar ve'oyev was Haman. However, the Gemara points out, she started to point to Achashverosh, pointing straight at him. And they came along and said, careful, Esther, you don't want to get yourself killed. You're trying to solve a problem here. Achashverosh was a Russia too, but you don't want to get everybody killed here. So let's just point to the right person. So that's Haman Hara Hazeh. That Hazeh is I'm pointing to the right person now, but I wasn't before. That's a taich in the pasuk. So he got up in anger, and then V'hamelech shav miginas habisan, and then he came back from the garden. Remember, we said earlier that the bisan was an orchard; it had special trees there. Says the Gemara, Makish Shiva Lakima. His return to the house was similar to his exiting of the house. Makima b'chema. He was angry in one case. Av Shiva b'chema. It was also his return to the house was angry. Why? What did he see when he was in the bisan? When he was out in the garden? Says the Gemara, 10 lines from the bottom. De Azal. He saw angels from heaven, but these angels they didn't look like angels. They looked like men. They were uprooting trees. They were digging out trees, these special, whatever the trees were. I don't know what a special tree is. They were digging up all these trees. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you tearing this up? So they threw Haman under the bus. Haman was the one who commanded us to do so. So then he was fuming angry. He runs back inside to go yell at Haman for what he did. Also the base. He walks inside. The Haman nofel ala mita. This is not good. Haman is having a very bad day. Nofel, says the Gemara, falling. That's present tense. It should have been nafal mi baile. You're either down or you're up. Which one is it? So he was either on the bed where Esther was, or he was not on the bed. So says the Gemara, Amar Rebbe Lazar Melamed Shabal Malach vehipilu aleha. He repeatedly got pushed by this malach over and over again to keep falling on the bed. So no fell in present tense. Omar vaimi besav vaimi bara. Things are terrible in my house, and things are terrible outside my house. Vayomer hamelech hagam lichbosh es hamalka ibim babayis. What's the hagam? Also, the hagam is on the trees. Not only did you have the minimal chutzpah to go outside and have these people dig up my trees, they were malachei asharis. He didn't know what was actually happening. They looked like people. But hagam, that's the hagam. Again, the subtext. We don't know how to read the Megillah without Gemara. Hagam, but also the boshes hamalka imi babayis. What are you doing? We always say Charvona Zachor Latov. The Gemara says he was a Rasha Mamish. Says the Gemara, Amar Rebbe Lazar, Af Charvona Rasha Ba'oso Eitzahaya. Because really Charvona and Haman were on the same page. But Kevan Sharash Lo Niskaim Atzaso. Once he saw that this whole idea that Haman and Charvona had all tried to build together, Miyad Barach, he separated. He broke the pact that he and Haman had. He ran away from him. After Haman was killed, his anger was calmed, but Shechacha is a little bit of a strange word. So the Meforshim point out that there shouldn't be two chafs here. There should only be one. Shtei shechichos halalu lama. What was the two calmings? What two things happened? Achas shel malchus shel olam. One is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, where he saw that the Gzeir was uprooted. The achas shel Achashverosh, and one of them was that Achashverosh was calmed from the fact that she was about to be killed, and Haman was doing terrible things, digging up trees, falling on her bed. The Amri la, some say achas shel Esther, achas shel Vashti. One was a calm from Esther, and one was a calm from Vashti as a retribution for her death. This pasuk is not here. If you look on the side, you'll see that this pasuk is from a totally different location. This pasuk is from Sefer Breshis, and it's from the story of Yosef. And we'll see what this has to do with us momentarily. Says the Gemara, yes, sir.
Why do we say Karbanos Tov if the Gemara doesn't even focus on?
It's very interesting that we do that, but I'm just playing off of the words that we have in our Sidurim, is that the reason why he was killed so quickly was because Harvon is like, let's use this tree. So it sped up the death of the Russia. Balabatash answer. I don't have a deeper answer than that. But obviously, Pashas of the Gemara, clear. He's a Russia. He's not a Tzaddik. But he switched gears and he played a role. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. Hey, well, let's hang him on the tree. get me out of this thing. I don't want to be all,
But the Gemara is suggesting that Charvona was saying that both Mordechai and Haman should be hung on the tree?
No.
So what was his suggestion then?
Charvona was that when he said Agam lichbosh samalka v'mi babais and Achashverosh was angry, he said hang him on the tree that he planned for Mordechai.
One was the ultimate fair weather thing.
But again,
Ben
what?
Zara,
Kevin Shroy Shalom Sky Matzah. So who's
The original.
That was a duo move. That Charvona and Haman were all part of this ruse to kill Mordechai. That's what the Gemara is telling us. So when they failed in their process, because Haman got caught, so Charvona's like, oh, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Oh, I have a great idea. You know what? There's a big tree that was meant for Mordechai. Let's hang Haman on. Got himself out of that pickle pretty quickly. He's still in Russia because he didn't do the right thing, but Charvon is a chur latov because he was the one who came up with the resolution to lead to the
and
point.
this person by Ashley Olive has got nothing to do with Megillah.
Nothing. It's just saying that he was a bad guy for leaving. Correct. All right, bottom line, second to last line. Lekulam nasan ish chalifos. Everyone got clothing. This is the story of the brothers with Yosef. Simalos, they got a change of clothes. Ulvinyamin nasan chamesh chalifos. And Binyamin got 5 pairs of clothes. Asks the Gemara the most obvious of questions. If there was anyone in the Torah who had a problem that was started with clothing, it's Yosef. Says the Gemara, Efshar davar shenitztar bo osit tzaddik. Could it be that something like clothing, which caused so many problems, excuse me, for this person, for Yosef, yikashel bo, the ksonas pasin was says the Gemara, Amar Rabba bar Machasya, top of Tes Zayin Amud Beis, Amar Rav Chama bar Goria, Amar Rav, Bishvil mishkal shnei slaim milas, because of milas, which is fine wool, in the weight of 2 slaim, Shehosif Yaakov, Li Yosef Mishar Echav, that Yaakov gave to Yosef more than the other brothers, slowly but surely, Nisgalgel Hadavar, one thing led to the next, and all of a sudden we see that there's preferential treatment to Binyamin with more clothes, 5 sets of clothes instead of 1. Of all people on planet Earth, Yosef should have known that the clothes were dangerous. So it says the Gemara, 5 lines down, Omar, Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, Remez Ramaz lo she'asid ben lotzeis mimenu, that he was just giving a hint to Binyamin that Binyamin would have a descendant. And we spoke about this earlier, that we know that there was a machlokes as to whether or not Mordechai was a descendant of Binyamin or Yehuda. He had 1 parent from each. So here on this side, on the Binyamin side, that he was going to have this child, Ben Lotzeis Mimenu, Shiyatza Milifnei HaMelech B'chamisha Levushay Malchus, and he will be wearing 5 different types of high quality clothing. Shneimar Mordechai Yatza Bilavush Malchus Tcheles V'chule V'chule V'chule. The pasuk lists 5 different things. Beautiful. Then the pasuk says, Vayipol al tzava Rei Binyamin Echav, that he fell onto the necks of Binyamin, and in perfect sarcastic form, the Gemara says, Kama tzavarin havu leila Binyamin. How many necks did he have? It's not playful, it's just straight up sarcasm. Do we see this very often? It's not normal. This is a very interesting line. So Amar Rabbi Elazar, very cute. Bacha, he was crying about 2 things on his neck. Al shnei mikdashin she'asidin lios bechel kol she'Binyamin ve'asidin lecharev. They were having a brotherly hug, but it was a hug with nevuah, and they were concerned about the 2 batei mikdash that would soon be destroyed. Not soon, but in the future. U'Binyamin bacha al tzavarav. The pasuk says he cried on his plural neck. So then says the Gemara, bacha al mishkan shilo she'asid lios bechel kol she'yosef v'asid lecharev. The same as well. Next, the pasuk says, "V'hinei nechem ro'os v'hinei achi Binyamin." What does this mean? Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar lahem. Yosef says to the brothers, "Keshem shein b'libi al Binyamin achi." I have nothing negative about my brother Binyamin. Shelo haya b'mechirasi. He wasn't involved in my sale to the Ishmaelim and to the Midyanim and the whole story there. Kach ein b'libi alechem. What a darga! What a mevater that Yosef was able to say such a thing. Even if he's lying to say such a thing is a high level, but certainly if it's true. And as well, kifi, play on words, kipi, kifi, kain libi, that is how my heart is. Aviv shalach kazos asara chamorim nosim mituv Mitzrayim, that he sent to his father 10 donkeys laden with the tuv Mitzrayim, with the goodness of Mitzrayim. My mituv Mitzrayim, what is this talking about? Halfway down, Tes Zayin Amud Beis, Amar Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, Amar Rabbi Elazar, shalach lo yain yashan, shedas akenim nocha heimenu. He sent him old wine that the knowledge of the elders would benefit from, would enjoy. Okay, I don't know if that language is homily to other things, but it's enjoyable wine. That they all bow down in front of him. Says the Gemara, Amar Reb Binyamin bar Yefes, Amar Reb Elazar, Hainu da'amri inshi tale be'idne sagile, that a fox in its hour, when this fox is all of a sudden on a run and he's done a whole bunch of kills in the jungle, all of a sudden he becomes the most important, even though the fox is not the biggest of the animals in the safari. Sagile says the Gemara, Tala, he's a fox, which implies that he's not anything bigger. Why is he any less than his brothers? The fox is not the lion. Why is he any less than his brothers? Ella, says the Gemara, last short line, you're absolutely right. If you're going to quote this line, that says that he was like a fox, quoted in the right place. Where does this apply? Not by Yosef and as it relates to his brothers, but by Yosef as it relates to his father. But Yeshiv Yisrael al Rosh Hamita, that Yisrael, Yaakov sat on the edge of the bed. Amar Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, Amar Rabbi Elazar, as it relates to Yaakov, Tale be'idne sagile. He sat up in his bed because Yosef walked in the room. Relative to him, he's the fox. Yaakov is the lion. He said comforting words to them. Amar Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes, Amar Rabbi Elazar, he said things to them that would be well received in the heart. And what did he say? Just like 10 candles couldn't extinguish one, obviously a metaphor to reference the fact that the brothers couldn't kill him. I'm only one candle compared to the 10 of you. How can I affect you negatively? I have nothing against you. So then we're going back to our story now in the Megillah. The pasuk says as the conclusion, well-known pasuk and a well-known drasha as well. Amar Rabbi Yehuda ora zu Torah, v'cheinu omer kiner mitzvah v'Torah. Or that when the pasuk says lahudim ha'isa ora, that is a reference to Torah. Simcha ze yom tov, that this is a holiday. V'cheinu omer v'samachta b'chagecha. Sason zu mila. How do we know that that's true? V'cheinu omer sasan v'chil alim rasecha. That we rejoice in regards to the mitzvos. And this is something that's said at every bris. Vikar, elu tefillin. How do we know that these are tefillin? V'cheinu omer uru kol amei haaretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha. How do we understand this pasuk? And now we know a famous idea from the Megillah. Parshandasa, the name of all of the sons of Haman, Aseres b'nei Haman, the whole pasuk. It's only quoted in part, of course. Amar Avada, Dimin Yafo, Aseres b'nei Haman va'aseres, and that last word, Sarach lemeimrinu b'neshima achas. We do this. It all needs to be said in one breath, from the beginning of the names of the brothers all the way until the end with the word Vaseres, my taima. Why is it that that's the case? Kulu bahade hadade nafku nishmasayu, because everyone died at the same moment. All of them died at the same second. So I looked into this a little bit. Who cares? What does that have to do with anything? Why does that mean that we therefore have to? So I looked around some basic svarim. I didn't see anything. If you know of anything or see anything, please let me know. I didn't see anything practical. Why is that relevant to us that we need to read on?
It's when the clock went to quadruple zero, the game was sort of over. So we commemorate that.
That's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't have assumed that was the case from the Gemara, because it seemed that the uniqueness was that the moment of death was a simultaneous moment for all of the 10 sons.
The question about Goyim and Shamos seems to be answered here.
Wow. Okay.
And also my answer is
Extracting from the Megillah to Hilchos Tumah V'Tara. I drove my nephew to a baseball game next to a cemetery. What about Tumas Mace?
Yeah, we're gonna do.
I
No,
just
but
now,
I thought my son was in the car too. I think he said he had to go around.
with me?
He told
Oh,
me.
yeah. I've done it a couple times with Yakir, with Yosef's son. Yeah, I've done it a few times. Yeah.
My answer
And I
was-
forgot. He's like, I'm a Kohen. I'm like driving literally on the other side of the.
They can't get them to cut the trees.
A new light over here.
Yeah.
My answer is not that great because really the story doesn't end for several months. So.
Right.
No, but this was a turning point. I agree that it's a turning point.
Yeah,
It's a turning point. I mean, I would have thought that the turning point was when everything was revealed to Achashverosh, and he's like, "You're right. Let's kill this guy." I mean, that's hard to tell. I don't know. I think this requires a little bit of research. Maybe there's something metaphysical going on here. I don't know. Amar Rav Yochanan, Vav de Vaizasa. The Vav in the name of Vaizasa, Tzarech lemimtecha bezekifa. It needs to be a very tall Vav. Ke murdaya de livros. This is referring to these bumpers that they used to have in the water to prevent boats from getting close to the rocks, which would then, of course, tear into the hull of the boat. Says the Gemara, my taima, kulu bechad zakifa is zakifa. They were all hung one above the other, very tall tree, and that's what the Gemara says. It was vav. That's what it looked like. One long line of dead bodies, one hanged right after the other. Two-thirds of the way down, 10 lines into the wide line. Tamar of Chanina bar Papa, Darash of Shila ish kfar tamarta. What did he say? Kol ashiros kula nichtavos ariach al gabe leveinu levein al gabe ariach. Whenever there's a shira that's quoted in the Torah, it's written like az yashir. Two sections on one line with a blank in the middle. The next section is filling in the middle, but a line underneath. And then brick after brick after brick. It's kind of like the way that the bricks on our homes are made in order to have stability and interlocking between them, which is one row is as it is. The next row is shifted 50% so that the center of the brick above is right over the midline of the two bricks below. Says the Gemara, there are exceptions. Chutz mi shira zu, except for this shira. I don't know why this is called a shira. But except for this year with the names of all of the sons, that the halves at the end, when the pasuk has when it has two portions, those are the half bricks, and then when it's one in the middle, that is a whole brick. But there we don't do that in these two cases of this shira and malchei kanan. Says the Gemara, my taima shelo tehei tkuma lamapalasa. Because you can climb up that ladder in the ksav. If you would look at the ksav in the Megillah, or let's say Az Yashir, okay, I fell down one, but I can climb up. It's like King Kong when we were little kids, like that climbing thing. Please excuse the comparison, but yeah, just says the Gemara, Shelo tehei kuman lamapalasa. These 10 Rishayim should have no way to climb back out of the grave that they dug for themselves. Yomer Hamelech leEsther Hamalka b'Shushan Habira Hargu HaYehudim. So if you look at this pasuk in full, it seems like he's about to get scathing, and I'll just read the pasuk for you here. It says in pasuk Tezvav b'Kibel HaYehudim blah blah blah. What does he say? Oh, he says no. This is not the right. Ubevoah. I'm reading the wrong pasuk. Sorry. Vayomer. That's pasuk Yadal. Pasuk Yadal reads like this: Vayomer Hamelech leEsther Hamalka. B'Shushan Habira Hargu HaYehudim V'Abed Chamesh Meos Ish V'Esaseres B'nei Haman B'Shar Medinos HaMelech Me'asu. It sounds like a negative question. It sounds like he's critical. And then look at the next words. U'Masha Elosech V'Inasein Lach. So it seems the Gemara picks up on this very gentle split in language where for a couple of words in the pasuk he seems to be criticizing her, and then he switches to Masha Elosech. So says the Gemara. Omar, first of the next set of middle width lines next to the Tosfos, and Omar Rabbi Abba Malamed Shabba Malach v'Sitro Al Piv. He was in the middle of talking, about to drop the microphone and say, "What are you doing? How could you behave this way?" And then all of a sudden he switched gears because he got smacked across the face. He's like, "Oh, okay, fine." It's just a lot going on here. Ubevoa lifnei hamelech Omar im hasefer, very strange pasuk. And when she showed up to the king, Omar in the male, Omar mi baile, says the Gemara, it wasn't her talking; it was talking about Mordechai. Amar Rav Yochanan, and we take out the words Amra lo; those words should not be here. The Meforshim point out Yomar bepem ashakasu besefer, that one should be saying in words what's written in the sefer. What's divrei shalom ve'emes? Amar Reb Tanchum va'amrei la. That we should have a Megillah that has sirtut. Sirtut is, of course, the etching of the lines. It's the tops of the lines that we write from in order to ensure that the script looks very nice. Ma'amar Esther Kayam. What does that mean? That the Ma'amar of Esther was Kayam. Ma'amar Esther in Divrei Hatzomos lo. The fasts were not kept. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, not correct. Divrei Hatzomos Ma'amar Esther Kayam, because it says Es Yemei Hapurim Ha'elim. Ki Mordechai Hudi Mishnah LaMelech HaChashverosh V'Gad V'Alim Ratzah L'Rov Echav. He was liked by most people. You ever think about this? I mean, what does it mean? Rov? He's Mordechai HaYehudi. He's a big tzaddik. L'rov echad v'lo l'kol echad. So says the Gemara, Malamed shepir shemimenu mixas Sanhedrin. He was part of the Lishkas HaGazis, part of the greats, and he was a little distance from the Chevra and the Beis Medrash. Why? Because Amar Rav Yosef, Gadol Talmud Torah Yoser me'atzalas nefashos. It is obviously, I should say obviously, Talmud Torah is greater than hatzalas nefashos. Let me just be clear here that this is not talking about a case of hatzalas nefashos that's mutal lefanecha. Obviously, if there's a case scenario in front of you where stopping to learn Torah will save someone's life, obviously, you stop learning Torah, that's for sure. But if it's just a general concern, then sit in the Beis Medrash and learn. How do we know that he was disliked a little bit by the people in the Sanhedrin? Because in one pasuk he was quoted after 4 names, and in another pasuk he was quoted after 5 names. In one case it says, Asher ba'u im Zerubbabel, Yeshua, Nehemiah, Shiraya, Re'eliah, and did I skip a pasuk? No, and Mordechai and Balshan, and that's when where he was quoted, Mordechai. And then Luvasov, Ksiv Habayim, Im Zerubbabel, Yeshua, Nehemiah, Azariah, Ramai, and Nachmani, and then Mordechai, Balshan. So in one case 4, one case 5. We're going to stop right here at Omar Rav, and we will pick up Emir Hashem tomorrow night at 8:40 p.m. Wishing you all a beautiful night.